Okay, so today we are talking about the Hindu and Buddhist ideas on human nature, on the reality of what it means to be human. In essence, Hinduism and Buddhism provide very different but very fascinating answers to the question, who am I? We will first look at some of the Hindu ideas on this, and then we'll discuss the Buddhist ideas. You'll see that there are a lot of differences, so perhaps also some similarities that obtain between these two different philosophies. So to get into the Hinduism perspective, I had you look at the excerpts from the Bhagavad Gita, which is an ancient Hindu sacred text describing a long conversation between a prince named Arjuna and a Hindu god Krishna. And their discussion touches on various aspects of Hindu thought, and we're going to look at a couple of those that are relevant for this discussion on human nature. What does it mean to be human? Who am I? Those sort of questions. Let me just write a few things on the board so it's clear for you. First, the name of the book is Gita, the Bhagavad Gita, Bhagavad-Gita. Arjuna, Arjuna, Prince. Krishna, Krishna, is the Hindu god who talks to Krishna, or talks to Arjuna throughout the story. Okay. Now, the second thing, the main thing to focus on is the fact that Arjuna is fighting his relatives in this story, and he doesn't want to. And he tells this to Krishna, and Krishna's response is very interesting. So that's what we're going to focus in on now. Arjuna not wanting to fight his relatives is very understandable. These are his cousins. These are people who he grew up with. He doesn't want to fight them. So that's the first main problem that Arjuna is experiencing here. The second is that he's afraid of death. He doesn't want to kill his relatives. He doesn't want to cause their death. And the implication also here is that he doesn't want to cause his own death. So he is not going to continue this fight. And Krishna steps in and starts to give him a long discussion on some of the central elements of Hindu thought. Now, one of the main things Krishna gets at is that there is an Atman, Atman, which is the eternal soul, true self, the real self, that abides inside of everyone. And Krishna starts telling Arjuna that he needs to focus on this Atman. This is his true self, and he needs to be attuned to it, listen to it, and accept it as a fundamental part of him. Secondly, Krishna points out to Arjuna that this Atman is a manifestation of and connection back to ultimate reality, which the Hindu term Brahman. All right, so let me write these two terms on the board. Helpful. First we have Atman, A-C-N. Then we have Brahman, B-H-R-A-M-A-N. B-H-R-A-M-A-N. So the Atman The Atman is the eternal soul, and the Brahman is the ultimate reality. I think one helpful way to think about this is it's similar to Plato. As we saw for Plato, there were two realms. There was the realm of the form, and then there was the world of physical objects. This realm of form, remember, is eternal, never changes, always stays the same, absolute. It's the most real. And like manner, for Hinduism, Brahman is eternal, never changes, stays always the same, it's absolute, it's total, ultimate reality. And just like with Plato, the soul had access back to that realm of forms because that's where it belongs, that's what its natural home was. Likewise, for Hinduism, the Atman has a natural connection to ultimate reality. That's sort of its home. That's where it belongs. That's what it needs to connect to. So that's the very important point that Krishna draws out here, first of all, that we have to focus on for Hinduism. There is the true self, the Atman, which is ultimately oriented towards the Brahman, the ultimate reality. Okay, now I think there's an interesting way to demonstrate this, which I'm stealing from the book, and I have no problem saying that, but it is a helpful analogy to what we're talking about. So, this is an avocado, okay? And if we were in class, you could all see much more clearly, but in any case, it's an avocado. So what's interesting about this avocado is the fact that the outside is quite pliable. Push it, I squeeze in on it. And actually, as I'm doing so, what starts to happen is that the shell is actually busting open. Kind of hopefully start to see here. There we go. All right. And inside of this shell, of course, is all this, stuff that we use for guacamole. The actual part of the avocado. Smells okay, I guess. I don't know. I'm not a big fan of raw avocados, but whatever. I guess they're a healthy superfood. Yeah, alright. So anyway, I can start taking this apart, and as I start doing so, it's very mushy and bucket here to put this in. And so start getting just all this avocado goodness starts coming out. So as I'm doing that, I'm like, well, there doesn't seem to be anything stable in here as I keep going through it. However, as I do that, I eventually reach something that is very stable, right? So that's it. That's the end of it, except for this, which hopefully see is the core, or the inner nut of the avocado. Now all this other stuff here has, in essence, just been mushed away. All the shell, all the other green stuff, it's gone. This has stayed the same throughout. So in the midst of all that destruction to the shell and the inner parts of the avocado, its nut, the core, has stayed absolutely the same. As a matter of fact, that's the avocado not being hit against the table. It's very hard. It's very stable. It stays the same. It's enduring. Now, why did I just demonstrate that besides the fact that I could get my hands very dirty and the avocado? Well, good reason for this. The outside layers of the avocado represent the body, emotions, senses, etc., that we have that are changing, that are not eternal, that are not stable, that come and go, that don't last forever, etc. On the other hand, this, bring it back up here, inner core, it stays the same, all right? So what this represents, obviously, is the Atman, all right? So we go right down the board just as another helpful hint, all right? Here we have avocado core equals Atman. Right, so the avocado core equals the Atman. And the outer part of the avocado is going to equal the human body and our emotions and pretty much everything else that is changing within us. Okay, so again, our thoughts, we go from one thought to the next thought. Our emotions, happy one day, sad the next day, overjoyed, depressed, whatever. These come and go. They're not stable. Our bodies grow up, grow old, decay, get injured, fall apart, all this other stuff. What doesn't change, according to Hinduism, is this Atman, this inner soul, this true self, this inner reality. All right. Now, as we keep going with this, I want to clarify a couple points about this Atman. So this Atman, because it doesn't change, because it doesn't undergo decay or death, is eternal. Another way of saying it is that, first of all, the Atman has always existed, and second of all, it will always exist. This should strike us as very familiar to what we saw with Plato and his ideas on the eternal soul. Now, on the other hand, anything having to do with the shell or green stuff of the avocado, all right, is changing, can be destroyed, is passing, all right. So there's a dualism. That's one way to describe it. There's a dualism between the Atman and then the body and the emotions and the senses. The Atman, as we saw, is eternal. The body, the emotions, and the senses, on the other hand, are not eternal, and they will pass away, and they will be destroyed eventually. Now, the issue that we should go back to is from the text. Okay, so for Krishna, he tells Arjuna straight out, look, don't worry about harming your relatives, harming yourself, killing your relatives, or yourself being killed. Don't worry about any of that. Why? Precisely because the Atman in Arjuna, as well as the Atman in all those people on the battlefield against whom he is fighting, is eternal and cannot be destroyed and can't really be harmed. So Krishna basically tells Arjuna, look, fight the battle. You're not killing anybody. I, a god, Krishna, have given you this command, and your responsibility is to carry out my command. Don't worry about harming your relatives. In the end, in the final analysis, they're not even really your relatives because you're an eternal soul. You're not just somebody who's part of a family, right? So in this respect, what Krishna is doing is he's saying, yes, on one level your relatives are important, but that's just a limited part of your existence. That's just how you exist here and now in this one time and place. Okay? Eternally speaking, you're an eternal soul connected eternally to Brahman, the ultimate reality, and that's what you need to focus on. Besides, the Atman in your relatives won't be harmed, it won't be killed, so you're not really killing anybody in that respect. All right. So it's an extreme position that Krishna is advocating here. It's not something that I think we're always easily comfortable with. But again, he's drawing there's another dualism going on. I talked earlier about this dualism between the Atman on the one hand, and then the soul, the body, and the senses on the other hand. I think there's also a distinction here between our physical existence here and now and our eternal existence. So the physical existence here and now, yes, Arjuna is part of a family and he's fighting against other members of that family. But that's not absolute. That's only relative, that's limited, that's not really important. What's more important, what's more real, more eternal, of course, is the Brahman-Atman relationship. So this is a second dualism that we see here, and hence, based on that, Krishna can say to Arjuna, go ahead, fight against your relatives, you won't be killing them, you're just following what I command. Okay, now, I want to focus on next how problems can arise according to Hinduism, how unhappiness can arise, how we get in bad situations and don't really fulfill our lives. So one of the problems that comes up is that we have a case of mistaken identity. This is a theme that we'll see not only in Hinduism but also in Buddhism. So mistaken identity is when we attach our identity and we answer the question, who am I, by pointing to some sort of thing like our bodies or our minds or some kind of combination of that. Okay?